All right. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Yep, okay. Welcome on in, everybody. So I will be showing you some calculations on screen today, so it'll work a little better, those of you who are over in the YouTube stream. Otherwise, I've got a few things to show you today, I guess. Let's take a look for starters. So just want to show you, we got a few more weeks, really. We have 3 more regularly scheduled meetings, and then we have the final exam. So let's take a look at that. So we meet Mondays, so we've got the 25th, the 2nd, and the 9th, and then see how it goes purple here? That's finals week. So just be aware, we have to meet during finals week, right? You sometimes have teachers that cancel the final and stuff. It's in our contract. We're not supposed to do that. We are required to have a meeting during final exams, and we're supposed to give a final exam of some sort. So just be aware of that. There was always, not always, but at least once, at least once a semester, I'll have a student that's like actually doing really successful in a class, maybe a B. A lot of times students have like a B, sometimes a C, but sometimes a B. And then they just like don't show up to the final and then get a 0 on the final and then fail the class, which sucks after 18 weeks of like working hard enough to get a B in the class and then sort of losing it all at the end. So make sure we got 4 more meetings, 3 regularly scheduled meetings that are on Monday at the regular time that we meet. And then we will have your final exam during finals. So let's see when that is. So if you are on the main Ventura College webpage and you just go up to the top, see where it says academic calendar up there? If you click that, it's going to, tell you when the, sorry, I was reading the chat. I got distracted with myself. It's going to tell you when the finals are. So if you click that, you come down here, you get the calendar I was just showing you, which is the instructional calendar, which all students should have. And then there's your final exam schedule. So a lot of times students think the only time to figure out when the final exam is by emailing the teacher. Nope, you can just look when all your final exams are right here. Just one click from the front of the Ventura College webpage. You click academic calendar. It's going to take you here. So we click this. This gives us our spring schedule. So let's see, we are what? We are Mondays at 1. So when would that be? It's probably on Monday somewhere. Let's take a look. Here we go. Right here. Let me see, I can blow that up a little bit. So that's for classes that are Monday or Monday, Tuesday at 1. So Monday at 1, and it's going to be 12:30. So so you actually show up 30 minutes early. Sometimes this happens where the classes get shifted a little bit one way or the other. And then you just have to be aware of that, right? Like I took a music class on campus a few years ago, and it started 45 minutes earlier than the normal time. So if you show up at the normal class time, you've just missed all that time in order to take the final. So what will happen in this class, and let's see, I'm making a note so I can go back and talk about the question that's in chat there. So what will happen is you will probably have the opportunity to take the test before that. I'll probably open it up so that you can take the test ahead of time. What you can't do is take it late. Okay, so like we won't meet for a regular Zoom meeting. I usually have my Zoom open just in case some student is like having a, technical difficulty and in a panic mode or something. They can at least contact me, although there's not really much I can do. But you can contact me, but you'll have from, basically at the end of this period, so 2:30 on Monday, that test that you'll be taking closes. So you won't be able to take the test after that. So make sure you take it before that. And as we get closer to that, I'll be more detailed about like exactly what the details are going to be. But basically, I'll probably open it, maybe a couple days earlier, so you can take the test earlier if you want. But I have to have it due at that end of class. Like, I can't go beyond that, because if I go beyond that time, then what happens is we open ourselves up to, like, students could say, well, he let some people turn it in later, and he didn't let me turn it in later. And, yeah, that's not great, right? So it's really important that for our final exams, we really are, like, consistent and treating everyone fairly and stuff like that. So the test has to be turned in by 2:30. So if you're waiting till the last minute, I get these emails of people like, that are trying to turn in their assignment at 11:59 and the computer booted up a little too slow and they didn't get it in on time. Like, that's kind of on you for waiting till the exact last minute to turn it in. So, try to turn it in early, maybe even do it a few hours early. Some of you will do it a couple days early. Then you don't even have to worry about it. It's just out of the way. So just make sure you're kind of paying attention to that. The school is particular about how we have there's a lot of policies that the faculty have to follow carefully about how the final is given, because otherwise we open things up for students to complain about not being treated fairly and stuff like that, and we don't want any of that, right? The professional way to do it is everyone comes in, gets done, and then then there's no complaints or anything like that. Okay, so that's how we'll do that. The final exam will cover just the medical portion. You've already been tested on the algebra stuff. So the stuff that will be on your final exam will come straight from the Math for Meds book, right? This Math for Meds book, that's where the stuff for the final exam is going to come from. So make sure you know how to do those things. Could come from anywhere in those chapters we've covered, but that's the only thing it will cover. I'm not going to go back and throw in stuff from the algebra portion. You've already been tested on the algebra, plus it's the part that's like less relevant to what you actually need. The stuff in the Math for Meds book is stuff that like you'll actually be doing, right? Like in your job. You're probably not going to like in your job, you probably won't have too many times where you have to like solve an equation with rational equation or square root equation or something like that. I mean, basic ones maybe, like the real basic ones, but not the kind of ones we did. You probably aren't going to run across that too much, at least not doing the basics of stuff, but you are going to be doing dosages like every day. So I feel like the final should really focus on that, and then you can move forward, and that's how that'll go. Just make sure you get it in by this 2:30 time on May 16th. After that, I cannot accept anything, basically. Unless if there's a legitimate reason, and by that I mean we're pretty strict about it. Not just me, but also the deans are pretty strict about that kind of stuff. I think there have been 2 exceptions in the amount of time that I've, this will be wrapping up 9 years at Ventura College, and I think I've had 2 exceptions to the finals policy. And both were women who were giving birth basically at the final exam time. So I think that's a no-brainer. I think pretty much anyone would agree, like, yes, if a woman is giving birth during the exam, let's let her take it at a different time, right? That seems pretty straightforward. But all the kind of normal stuff, like my alarm didn't go off, my car didn't start, like all of that is not really considered in the same category, or work made me start. So I'll start this, I'll probably give you a couple extra days on the early side. You can take the test early, and then it's due at the time of the exam, right? I just want to make that clear, because there's always a few people who miss that, and then they, I get an email like 2 days after the final, like, oh, when's the final? Did I miss it? I'm like, yeah, it's too late now, right? And I don't want to fail anyone just because they coordinated their time incorrectly. So please try to get that done, and then hopefully I can give you a passing grade and you can move on with the rest of your stuff, okay? Right. So let's see. So then there were questions about homework. So I kind of was hesitant to do this, but I don't really like the way that the WebAssign handles the homework. So I'm probably going to go in and extend some due dates for the class so that you can keep working on homework. Here's the thing. So when I extend the homeworks, this happens more and more every year, where students sort of get in a mode of thinking, like wait lists are one of those, where students think one thing about the wait list, and a lot of times the purpose of the wait list is very different. Due dates are like this, and it's been shown that there's been research that shows that like the number one one of the biggest things holding back human beings in general is procrastination, right? And they've shown this is a huge contributing factor in school as well, is procrastination. Basically, the more someone procrastinates, the less likely they are to be successful in school. And so there's a lot of people, though, where that's just their mindset. Like, they don't even think of it as procrastination. They're just told, this is due on the 15th. And so what they do is they go, oh, well, then I'll work on it the night of the 15th. Well, that's a terrible way to do it, right? What you want to do is get it done as soon as you can. Basically, as soon as we have a discussion in class about stuff, you should be trying to get that homework completed in the next few days. So my hesitancy to extend the due dates for the homework is that I know there are some of you who will then just look at the due date and go, oh, I don't have to do any of this until like next week. And then all of a sudden you have like 15 chapters due in a couple of days and you're like, what, this is too much, this is crazy. And then I'll even get emails where people are like, this is unreasonable that you're having all these assignments due at once. And it's like, right, but you've had weeks and weeks and sometimes months to do them. So it's not really that like it's unreasonable they're due. It's unreasonable you didn't do them at the time that made sense. So I'm going to extend some of the homeworks because I'm getting more and more people requesting extensions. And I'm not a big fan of like giving some people extensions and not other people. Like, well, how is that justified, right? So I'll extend them for the whole class, but please do not procrastinate. Please do not use that as an opportunity to not do the homework assignments now and say, I'll just get to it later. Because what happens is it's quickly piling up, and then you're going from, being 1 or 2 assignments behind, and then all of a sudden you're 6 or 8 assignments behind, and then that could keep you from passing the course easily. So I'm going to open those up. Please try, like, the key is discipline, right? This is one of the things, I almost wish this was part of a course that students have to go through, because if students really understood these opposing ends of procrastination versus discipline, the disciplined students just generally are going to succeed. And a lot of times the procrastinating students oftentimes won't. That's 2 very strong indicators of whether a student is going to succeed or not, is when they do their work. And the longer you wait to do your work, it's just you're setting yourself up for an impossible situation. So please try to, the week that we cover material, try to do the homework that week. Try to get it done by the next time I see you. But I am going to open it up because I know there's some people that are falling behind. So just be disciplined about it, right? You're gonna have to do that in order to be successful. Okay, so I will make a note to extend those homeworks later. I'll try to get it done today. I might not have a chance after class. If not, I'll get those homeworks extended maybe like tomorrow or something. So I'll try to get them up there so that you can get that, so that people can work on that. Let's see. Did I miss anything? I think I addressed everything that was being asked. So I think we got to all of that. Okay. And the way it's going from here on out with the homework is I've kind of got it in. Oh, yeah. There's a question. Go ahead, Carly. What's up?
Hi. So I just finished reading the chapters and I got done 12 and 13. But I was wondering if you would consider just extending the discussion, because I hadn't.
Oh,
I mean, until I finish the chapters, I don't really
sure.
feel like I have much to add to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not really, yeah, that's a good point. So it's not really going to be productive to go participate in a discussion if you haven't read the chapters. So yeah, I'll throw that in with the homework. When I extend the homework, I'll extend those discussions as well.
Okay, yeah, close. I like to put something meaningful instead of
Right.
just some like BS.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Yep.
thank
And then
you.
so I'll do that. And then again, same situation. Just try to, since that's even more stuff being extended, make sure, and this is to everyone, I'm not just responding to Carly, to everyone, make sure you're not procrastinating on the discussions either. Like, try as soon as you think you're ready to go, try to get them done, because trying to go back like weeks later and to participate in the discussion, like, you're probably going to forget a lot of the stuff. So works better that
Right.
way. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Sure. Let's see. Okay, great. Okay, good. Looks like that puts a few minds at ease. Get taking care of those things, and we'll go from there. Okay, great. So there's chapters in this book, and this book has a whole bunch of chapters. A lot of them are around 10 pages, but then they're also in sections where the chapters are grouped together into topics that are, cohesive topics. So like today we're doing section 5. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. We're doing section 5, which is chapter in 15 and 16, which is body weight and surface area. So calculations based on the surface area of an individual or the body weight of an individual. Those both come into play depending on the type of medicine that you have. And then there's chapter 6, which actually has 5 chapters, which we'll cover next week. And then section 6, which we'll cover next time, has 5 chapters. And then section 7 is the last one. That's just back to 2 chapters, and we'll do that in the last week, because in the last week, I'm probably going to want to talk about other stuff besides just that material. We're going to have more information about the final exam, and you're probably going to have questions for me about wrapping everything up. So that'll leave us a little bit of time to talk about that. So at least for the next few weeks, because we've got... if we look at the calendar here, we can see, so that's, today's the 25th, and then next time we'll do section 6 on the 2nd, and then we'll do section 7 on the 9th, along with some question and answers that you can all ask me what you need to ask for the last time that I'll be meeting with you in person. Remember, during the final exam, I will open Zoom, but you don't have to come to Zoom. Like for most of you, there probably won't be any reason to come to Zoom because most of you will have probably hopefully already turned your exam in, and then you're done with the course. You've completed the class. You don't have to come back anymore. I just opened Zoom during the final exam for when there's in case there's an emergency. There's some student who for whatever got confused and doesn't know what they're supposed to do. They can come in emergency style and ask me, and then hopefully you can get the test done in time or whatever. Right. Okay. So that's where we're going. So we're looking at 15 and 16 here. Let's see. So we got all that stuff done. Course modules. Okay. So we've got our chapter here. So adult and pediatric dosages based on body weight. So it makes sense that a drug will be affected by the body weight of the individual that you're administering it to, right? I mean, a lot of these, these things are all different, but a lot of these drugs end up in the blood. Well, the more body weight you have, then largely you have more blood. That stuff's going to get spread out over, more stuff, and a person has, more cells that the different drugs need to get to, whatever. So, body weight is a consideration in dosages. And so you're going to have to pay attention to these kind of factors and then know what to do with them when they arise. And there's a couple formulas we're going to be dealing with. There's some conversions back and forth. By and large, what I would say is there's a couple formulas inside of the 2 chapters that we're covering today, but they're not super complicated. You might forget them, but then all you got to do is Google them and look them up again. And you'll get that information. But I think most of this stuff you'll probably have pretty much memorized by the time you finish the homework. And then, you might have to just review it a little bit more before the final exam. So one thing I will say when you're using formulas, best way to learn formulas is to write them down every time you use them. Right, so it's easy to you can look on the screen and kind of look at it, and then when you write it on your scratch work that you're doing, you're kind of filling in the gaps for the formula. But what I've seen students do is, and seems to work very well, is every time you're about to use a formula, don't even start using it in the problem yet. Just write down the basic formula as is, without applying it to your problem. In other words, you're not substituting the values into the formula yet. You're just writing the formula as it is, and say it while you're writing it out, and you'll have it memorized by the time you finish the homework, right? You'll have it all completed. So don't have to worry about that too much. And these aren't complicated formulas. If you write them down every time you use them on a homework problem, you will have them memorized pretty quickly. Okay. So let's see, converting pounds to kilograms. So that's a thing that we eventually have to do, and you're going to be doing that in this chapter. You're going to be converting from pounds to kilograms. You're going to be converting from kilograms to pounds. Luckily, this is a very easy conversion. It does involve a decimal in it. So if you're doing it by hand, you do have to make that decimal consideration where you put the dot there and then you count the number of decimals and that kind of stuff. But by and large, especially if you have a calculator, it's going to be pretty straightforward. You're either dividing by 2.2 or you're multiplying by 2.2. So if body weight is recorded in pounds, but the drug literature lists dosage per kilogram, a conversion to pound to kilogram will be necessary, of course, right? So there are 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram. This means that a kilogram body weights are smaller than pound body weights. So the conversion from pound to kilogram is made by dividing the body weight by 2.2. So you can use the same exact conversions that, like the conversions we've been learning all along and the dimensional analysis and all that kind of stuff. You can totally use that to convert from pounds to kilograms and kilograms to pounds. But they're just kind of giving us a rule of thumb, which is really convenient to just remember 2.2. If you can just remember that magic number 2.2 for the weights, that means you can always remember how to convert from one to the other, and you don't even have to go through the dimension analysis. Not that it's that hard to do, but you can kind of skip that because you just go, well, all right, so there's 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram. So if we want to go from pounds to kilograms, then you divide by 2.2, right? And a lot of times people get confused about like, well, when am I supposed to multiply by 2.2 and when am I supposed to divide? And remember, like the best way to think about this, I would say, is not to memorize it, because when people memorize things without like the context, they end up invariably, I see this all the time, they end up like doing it backwards half the time. So it's not really that helpful. Just remember, should it be getting bigger or smaller, right? Do I expect this number to get bigger? Well, if there's 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram, right, then that's what they tell you here. They're kind of giving you the hint. Kilogram body weights are smaller than pound weights because 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, meaning a 100 kilogram person would weigh 220 pounds, right? So that means kilogram weights are smaller. So if you're going from pounds to kilograms, then you're thinking dividing by 2.2. And then it's the reverse, the opposite. If you're going from kilograms to pounds, well, like we said, a 100 kilogram person weighs 220 pounds. So pounds gets bigger. So if you're converting to pounds, you're going to multiply by 2.2. So there's no real magic there. And again, it's not even like a secret of memorizing it. You just think your way through it and go, wait, is this the one where I multiply or divide? And go, well, do I expect it to get bigger or smaller? Let's see, from kilograms to pounds, it should get bigger. Okay, then I multiply by 2.2. If you can just keep that rationale straight, you'll be fine. You're totally good to go, right? And then, of course, it works the other way around. So if we're converting from kilograms to pounds, then they tell you multiply by 2.2 because the answer in pounds will be larger than the answer in kilograms, right? So it's like you can see literally this is what they're doing for these problems. Up here, they're dividing by 2.2, and down here, they're multiplying by 2.2. That's all there is to it, pounds and kilograms. 2.2 is the magic number, and then you just reason out, intelligent individual, you just reason out, should this be getting bigger or smaller? That tells you if you're multiplying or dividing. So there's no magic there. There's no secret. So those homework assignments should be pretty straightforward. You just use a calculator, multiply or divide by 2.2 in the correct way. Okay, so let's get into this part of things. So calculating dosages from drug label information. So information you will need to calculate dosages from body weight will be on the actual drug label or on the insert. The total daily dosage is calculated, then it is divided by the number of doses per day, right? So we did oh, no, I'm thinking of a different problem. Never mind. So, yeah. So, then it is divided by the number of doses per day to obtain the actual dose administered at that time. So, here's where you want to be careful, right? Is that it's pretty important that you make the distinction between the daily dosage that person is supposed to receive versus the dosage that they are supposed to receive at that particular time that you were administering the dosage, right? I mean, it's clear if you're supposed to give someone 20 milligrams over the course of a day, then you don't want to accidentally give them 20 milligrams 3 times throughout the day, right? That could be disastrous, obviously. So make sure you do that, right? This step divided by the number of doses per day, and that's going to be given by the label. So it's going to instruct you how much to give the person and then how often, this kind of stuff. So, for instance, refer to the information written sideways. I know this is on page 230 in the book if you want to follow along with me. I know I can't make this writing big enough for it to really be readable on the screen. Let's see what happens if I make it one size bigger. Oh, then it's huge, right? That's too big. Oh, maybe that works. We'll try that, but it's still probably hard to read on YouTube. So feel free to, like I say, I'm on page 230. Feel free to follow along with me if you want. So where are we? So on this label, they're telling us that it's 20 milligrams per kilogram per day. So a lot of times, like, this is not a thing that we're used to seeing where there's like 2 of these lines. We're used to seeing like 1 dashed line in there. And remember, you can always think of that dashed line as just like the word per. So like 20 milligrams per kilogram per day. And that's, let's see, where was it on here? Here it is, right here. So I don't think I can highlight that. But we can see right on this first line of the sideways writing, it says usual dosage, children, 20 milligrams per kilogram a day, 40 milligrams per kilogram in otitis media in 3 divided doses. So it says in 3 divided doses, meaning this is the total amount they're supposed to get in a given day. You're going to divide that by 3 and give it out in 3 equal pieces, okay? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to figure out how many kilograms the person weighs, and then for each kilogram, they get 20 milligrams of the medicine. Then you're going to divide that, so you figure out what that is. Then you divide that by 3, and then every 8 hours, that's how much they get, right, over the course of the medicine. So so let's just do the problem where we're looking at an 18.2 kilogram child. Okay, so we want to look at the recommended dosage for that individual. So I'm just going to walk through the calculation here. So they gave us a lower dose, the lower limit dosage, which they said was for children. And then they gave us the upper dosage limit, which was for adults. So the dosage that's actually given really should fall somewhere in that value. So they took the 20 milligrams per kilogram and multiplied it times 18.2 kilograms because that's the weight of the child. So remember on the thing, it said 20 milligrams per kilogram per day. So for each kilogram you have in a day, you get 20 milligrams. So multiplication sort of calculates all that for us. So 20 times 18.2 gives us a lower amount of 364 milligrams per day. That's really like the lowest dosage we should be giving. At least that's what's considered the lower limit for the dosages. I guess a doctor could order more if they wanted to, but this is kind of what we're going with as the lower limit. And then you have the upper limit, which was the adult dosage. That's 40 milligrams per day. So at that point, you could really just kind of like double this amount because that's how much you're going to end up with, or do it the same way. You're just multiplying 40 times 8.2. So it's the same weight. You're just multiplying by the upper range this time. So we really know that patients really should be receiving between 364 milligrams, and 728 milligrams per day. That's the total for the entire day. So now that we know what our, oops, let me change this. There we go. Now we know the total amount that they should be receiving over the course of a day, but then we're supposed to divvy that up into 3 equal administrations of the drug, right? So every 8 hours, someone's going to come in and administer this drug. So all you then have to do is take your upper and lower limits and divide it by 3, and that tells you that really every time you administer this drug, you should be giving between 121 and 243 milligrams. Now there's rounding, you might be noticing like, wait a minute, 364 divided by 3 is not 121. It's close. It's just a rounding error. Basically, you'd get what? You'd get 121.333333333. So they're just rounding to the nearest milligram. So if you get confused about those numbers, and they don't seem like they're matching up like they're supposed to, it's probably just a rounding error. Like in mathematics, we don't like to write stuff like this. 364 divided by 3 equals 121 because it's confusing. We oftentimes use the little squiggly equal sign that means approximately, which is really what they should be using here, and say 364 divided by 3 is approximately 121, right? The equal sign is technically incorrect. But for what we're doing, it's fine. But just be able to recognize that. So we know the upper and lower amounts for the amount per dose. So if we get something that's outside of that range, a little red flag should go up in our brain and go, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. This seems like it's outside of that normal range. Now, you may have a doctor who's, or some, for whatever reason, whatever person or whatever along the way has ordered something that is outside of that range. But then you can double check and be like, is this the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because it's not in the normal range. And then the person might say, yeah, I know. Thanks for checking, but we're doing this for a specific reason. And then you can know what's going on, right? Yeah, so, and then they say, note that now that you have the dosage range for a child, you're able to assess the accuracy of the physician's orders. Let's look at some orders and see how you can use the dosage range you just calculated. So if the order is given to give 125 milligrams every 8 hours, is this within the recommended dosage? Well, we said a minute ago it should be between 121 and 243. So you go, yeah, 125 is in there. That seems right. So now you have that check where you're saying, no, this is that seems like a reasonable dosage that we're being ordered to give. If the order is 375 milligrams every 8 hours, is this within the recommended dosage? No. I mean, that's actually above, well, no, I guess not above the daily limit, but it would put you above the daily limit if you got administered that 3 times a day. And well, each time we administer the drug, it should be at most 243 milligrams. 375 is significantly over that. So then you can question the order and go, is this really what you mean for me to do? And then there's that check in there to make sure that, if it was a mistake, it's going to get caught. And if not, it's nope, go ahead and give this. I did that on purpose. And then at least you know that, okay, that's what the doctor or whoever is ordering it wants done. Okay. If the order is 75 milligrams every 8 hours, is this an accurate dosage? Well, it's safe because it's way on the lower, or it should be safe. It's way on the lower end of things, but it's probably it's like half. It's not quite half, but it's close to half, maybe 60% of the minimum dosage. So if you're giving that small of an amount, it might not even be doing anything. Right? It's hard to say. So in that case, you might want to double check and go, well, it doesn't seem to be in the amount that is recommended. It's not in this range that we calculated between 121 and 243, and then you just double check and then figure it out. if the order is 250 milligrams every 8 hours, is this accurate? And so here's where the book is sort of, I guess, asking you to be kind of, you have to be kind of a problem solver and think about it in context of what's going on. So 250, if we look, is outside of our range because the maximum dosage should be 243 milligrams per dose. But you've been told to give 250. But 243 is pretty close to 250, right? So they say because 243 milligrams per dose is the recommended upper limit, 250 milligrams is essentially within this normal range. The drug strength is 125 milligrams per 5 milliliters, and a 250 milligram dosage is 10 milliliters. And then they say the prescriber has probably ordered this dosage based on the available dosage strength and the ease of preparation. So it was probably an easy calculation to administer, and it's close enough to being the high end that they're saying it probably doesn't make a big difference. You want to think about this in terms of percentages and not in terms of pure values. Because if the maximum dose is 243 milligrams and you give a dosage of 250 milligrams, well, you've only gone over by, like 2.5%? Not even 3%, something like that, right? So it's a very small amount. Versus if the medicine that's supposed to be administered is 3 milligrams and you give 10 milligrams, you might go, well, that's the same as the problem we're doing. That's a difference of 7 milligrams. What's the difference? Well, it depends on the drug that you're using, right? Whereas, again, think about it in terms of percent that you're over and not necessarily pure amounts. Sure, the problem we're talking about here is 7 milligrams over the recommended dosage, but again, that's about 2%, so it's small. If you take, if something is supposed to be 3 milligrams and you give 10, you're 7 milligrams over, but that's like over 300% what you were supposed to administer. So if you're talking about certain drugs, things, something like a fentanyl or something, very small amounts can make a big, big difference, right? So you have to think about it in terms of percentages, not like, not absolute amounts. If the dosage ordered is 125 milligrams every 4 hours, is this an accurate dosage? So in this case, the doctor has changed up the frequency so that instead of every 8 hours, we're giving the dosage every 4 hours. So you have to consider that we are now, instead of the 3 administrations every 8 hours, we're doing it twice as much. We're getting 6 dosages. So that we would end up with 750, right? You take 125 times 6. You're going to get 750 milligrams. Is slightly but not significantly higher than the 728. Again, they're kind of saying, it's close enough. So maybe the person who ordered it really did want it every 4 hours, but they say if it doesn't match, then just call and verify, right? It's way better to verify and catch a mistake before that dosage is given. So that's sort of preferable. So kind of just what we went through was an example of to determine the safety of an ordered dosage, use body weight to calculate the dosage range ordered and compare this with the recommended dosage range in milligrams, kilograms per day, or milligrams, pounds per day. Assessment must also include the frequency of dosage ordered. So if you figure out that range that it's supposed to fall in, then you're going to catch most mistakes because the mistakes will be outside of that range and you go, wait, that doesn't make sense. So it's important to go through it the way that we set this up. And then they say here the thing I was kind of talking about. The difference between 4 and 6 milligrams is much more critical than the difference between 453 and 250 because, again, you're thinking about it in terms of percent. Right, not actual milligrams, because all these drugs, some drugs, if you give 1 extra milligram, it won't even make any difference. Other drugs, 1 extra milligram could be a big deal. So you can't compare them the same way. Additional factors that must be considered are age, weight, and medical condition. Although these factors cannot be dealt with at length, keep in mind that the younger, the older, or the more compromised by illness an individual is, the more critical a discrepancy is likely to be. So it just kind of makes sense. The healthier someone is, the smaller that little difference is gonna make a big difference. Okay, so then you start having, so you're basically gonna have problems just like you've been doing in a lot of these chapters. They're gonna give you some labels. You're gonna have to sit down and read the labels, pull the information out of the label, and then answer the questions, right? Oh, and the homework's up. I got the homework up this morning, so that should all be available to you. So you can go in and do that homework whenever you're ready. Okay, calculating dosages from drug literature. So sometimes there's going to be additional information that's in the insert. We've talked about the inserts before. The physician's desk reference or other similar type references. So sometimes you're going to have to look stuff up a little bit. And then you find out about the dosing and administration. Okay, so where are we? So it's the same type of problems, it's just this time they're giving you the bigger insert to get your information from. Oh, yep, and then that's pretty much it. So converting from pounds to kilograms, that's a pretty quick one. And then basically reading the label. The label's going to tell you about the weight and how to use that, okay? Okay, so that was chapter 15. Chapter 16 is about surface area. So you're going to see BSA coming up. That's just body surface area. So that's basically your skin. How much skin do you have? So remember, surface area is really like it's a two-dimensional measurement, right? If you want to measure the length of a wall, you get a tape measure, and it's called a linear distance. You're just measuring in a line how long something is. But an area is a different kind of calculation. It's like if you were going to put carpet in, you'd need to know what's the area of the floor. If you're going to paint the wall, you got to figure out how much paint to get. You need to know what is that area that I'm trying to cover. So BSA is just body surface area. So for different reasons, different people are going to have different surface areas. And then certain drugs are going to be based on that surface area calculation. I'm sure some of you have seen and some of you will see, people can have largely different amounts of skin. The bigger you are, you're going to have more skin. And your skin is an organ and does things and has lots of stuff going on. So it can affect those kind of calculations. So the nursing responsibility for checking dosages based on body surface area varies widely in clinical facilities. Therefore, this chapter covers all three essentials: calculation of body surface area, calculation of dosages based on body surface area, and the assessment of physician orders based on body surface area. So you've got a number of different things that you're keeping track of when you do this, and it can vary from place to place. Body surface area is calculated in square meters. So remember what that means? What that would mean is, let's say you had a rectangle, right? You got a big piece of particle board or foam board for a project or something like that. You have a big piece, and you cut it to be 1 meter, so it's a square, and the side length of all of those sides of the square is 1 meter. Then the area of that thing we've cut out is 1 square meter. So you could put it down, place it like a stamp where you put it down, pick it up, move it next to it, put it down, and you can mask out, well, how many of these square meters can I fit in the room? And the number that you can fit in the room is the area of the room. It's like how much carpet you're getting by plopping these squares down and seeing what happens, okay? We're going to need in order to do this calculation, because if you think about it, there's not really a great way to measure surface area. So what we do is we're going to have a formula, and it's going to involve a square root, and it's going to involve weight and height. And basically, you're going to plug these numbers in, and it's going to give you an estimate for body surface area that generally is going to be pretty good. It's kind of like, as far as I can tell, this calculation is a little bit like BMI, where, it's kind of a useful rule of thumb, but it's not like super exact. Although I think it will work for the kind of calculations that you're giving, but just kind of realize like this is sort of a rough estimate. I don't think this is accurate, considering that we have one number that we're always dividing by. If you went through and like used lasers and you measured the surface area of an individual, I think you'd get a little bit of drift from this actual formula, but it shouldn't really matter for the kind of stuff that we're doing, okay? But just kind of be aware of that. One of the things that we're going to talk about in this chapter is using a calculator. You're probably going to want to use a calculator for this calculation, and using calculators can be kind of a pain for reasons that we'll talk about in a little bit. It's not a big deal if you spend a few minutes to get to know your calculator, but a lot of times, we'll go into it in just a second, so we'll get to that. So here's your formula. So the body surface area is equal to the weight in kilograms times the height in centimeters. So here we're talking about the metric system, and hopefully you have all that figured out and sort of comfortable by now. So you take the weight in kilograms times the height in centimeters, and you divide by 3,600. And you divide by 3,600. That gives you the body surface area, and then you've done that calculation. Now you might go, well, wait a minute. What if I have the information in pounds and inches? Well, that's in here. Let's see. Is it right away they give us? I think it's in a little bit. Forget what page it comes up on. Here we go. Now they have the same formula, but it's in pounds and inches. And then notice that the number we're dividing by is different. So this is why it's kind of nice if you just do everything in metric. Then you're not going to have to remember two different formulas. But you could do it this way and then just have twice as many formulas to remember if that's how you like to do it. Okay, yeah, right. So there's our formula. Okay, so let's take a look at what we would do with this. So calculate the body surface area of a man who weighs 104 kilograms and whose height is 191 centimeters. So it's it's about as basic as you could get. You're plugging in the kilograms, you're plugging in the centimeters, you multiply them, divide by 3,600, and you end up with this 2.35 square meters. Right, so you can, then you can, use that in the calculation that you're using to figure out the dosage that you're trying to figure out. Now, here's what I was kind of hinting at a minute ago. Calculators vary in a way. Square roots must be obtained. So let's take a look at the example here. Calculators are weird in that there are tons of different ways to design calculators. You'd think it'd be pretty basic, but no, it's used totally different ways. Like when we do this, when we have classes where we have students use graphing calculators, the standard is usually a TI-84, Texas Instruments TI-84 calculator. That's kind of the standard in college. But there are other great calculators out there that are great graphing calculators. Casio makes really good calculators. HP makes some. There's a couple other makers out there that make really high-end graphing calculators as well. But you would think that they were all designed on different planets. I mean, they're like, you can be an expert in one, and then someone hands, you can be an expert in the TI-84. In fact, us teachers, we know how to do tons of stuff on them that we do in our classes on the TI-84s. You hand someone a Casio, and it's like it's alien technology. You're just looking at it, like trying to figure it out. Everything is named differently. You press the buttons in different orders, like all this stuff that can be so confusing. So when you're going to use a calculator for this kind of stuff, just make sure you know how to use that particular calculator. So I imagine on the job, most of you will probably, I would think, be using your phone, right? I need to do a calculation. Let me pull my phone out, and I'll use that little app that's on the phone in order to do the calculation. So that's fine. if that's the one that you're going to use, but then learn how to use that calculator. Make sure you understand how to do it. One of the things that comes up regularly with the square root button is knowing, am I supposed to push? Oops, I've grabbed the wrong thing here. What have I done? There we go. Too many windows. I grabbed the wrong thing. So in some calculators, you push the square root symbol and then the number. In other calculators, you push the number and then the square root symbol. And I think for this, this is just the Windows calculator. I think in that case, you go 9 and then the square root button. Yeah, and then it gives you 3. So you can see square root of 9 is 3. So, you know, you've got your square root button here. Sometimes it just looks like a square root symbol. Sometimes it looks like this, where there's a square root of x with a 2 there. Remember, 2 is the index. When we have a square root, if there's no number there, we assume it's a 2, meaning a square root. But, you know, some calculators are going to have other versions. So you just kind of keep track of it. But you might have a calculator where you first hit the square root and then you take the button. Okay, you have to learn your particular one. And I forget which one it is on the iPhone. Let me check. Let's see. So if we go, so if we're on here, oh, where is the square root button on here? Isn't there a, oh, I forgot. That's what I get for doing things on the fly. It just occurred to me to check this. I think, isn't there a setting to make it scientific? Oh, well, we can come back to that. But experiment with whatever calculator you're going to be using so that you actually know how to do that function. It's not always so easy as, well, there's a square root button, so I know what to do. And like I say, sometimes there's not even a square root button. Usually there's an option to change to scientific mode. For some reason, I'm not remembering what it is. Oh, edit home. No, that's not what I want. So just kind of learn how to do that. So we'll keep that around. So calculate the body surface area of a man who weighs 104 kilograms and whose height is 191. So remember the order of operations when you're doing this. That's another one that people in general will mess up when using a calculator, is they're forgetting the order of operations. And you'd be amazed how many people don't know the order of operations, right? You see this all the time, these like viral memes that go around where, like, you know, like someone has posted something about, like, there's some operations, some mathematical operations, and then people are arguing over which it is. And they're like, oh, this is, so many people can't get this answer right. It always comes down to order of operations. They have forgotten that you're supposed to do multiplications before additions or something like that, or they just never learned it in the first place. So it's especially important to know your order of operations when you're doing the calculations, because if you're not calculating those operations correctly on the calculator, then of course you're not going to get the right answer. So if I was going to do this one, here's what I would do is I would go 104 times 191 equals, okay, and then now I'm going to divide by 3600 equals this, and then I go, okay, now I want to take the square root, and I get 2.34, which rounds to 2.35, right? So you could see if you did it a different way, it's not always going to come out right, and I see students trying to do these other ways. Yeah, so it just depends. Sometimes students will accidentally do the order of operations wrong and it just kind of lucks out and comes out right. Sometimes you have the a very wrong answer coming out, so you have to be careful. Oh, and the square meters body surface area is rounded to hundredths. So that's 2 decimal places, right? 2 places after the decimal. So you go to the decimal. The next one is tenths. The next one is hundredths. So we generally round surface area to hundredths. Okay. Right. So we're still getting these calculations. So you can see it's pretty clear. There's no mystery in how that's being done there. And then like I showed you a minute ago, we have the same formula for pounds and inches. Your order of operations for this one is going to be the same, but obviously the calculation is going to come out a little bit differently. So it just matters which you have. Now, obviously you can't mix these, so use those conversions liberally, if you want. Because what if you have the weight in pounds, but you have the height in centimeters? Well, we don't have a formula for that combination. Or what if you have the other way, where it's weight in kilograms, but then the height in inches? We don't have a version for that either. So sometimes it just makes sense to get in the practice of converting things, and then you'll get really fast at converting, and then that also reduces the number of formulas that you need to have memorized, right? If you get really fast with converting pounds to kilograms and inches to centimeters, then you don't need this second formula, because you can always just convert to the metric one and then use the metric version, which is, I would say, probably a good idea, but may be helpful. Do you have this one memorized as well? It just depends. So you can see they're doing the exact same thing. Weight times height divided by this number. So once you know the body surface area in meters squared, the dosage calculation is just multiplication. You're literally just going to multiply. So if the dosage recommended is 5 milligrams per meter squared, and you calculate that someone has some child has 1.1 square meters of surface area, then it's just 1.1 times 5, giving you 5.5. Right? Just sort of straight multiplication. Let me remind myself. I forget what this is referencing right here. Let's see. So yeah, in situations where you have to check a dosage against the surface area recommendations, you will be referring to drug package inserts, medication protocols, and the physician's desk reference to determine what that dosage should be. Let's see. So refer to the vinblastine information insert below and calculate the first dosage of an adult whose body surface area is 1.66 meters squared. Calculations are to the nearest whole number. So let's look down here. We want to look for what we've been given. So the first dose, it says, should be 3.7 milligrams per meter squared of body surface area for adults and 2.5 for children. So for the first dose, you can see where they got the recommended dose, 3.7 milligrams per meter squared. We just picked that up from right here. Right? So 1.66 times 3.7, because 1.66 is the surface area given in the problem, times the 3.7 is giving us 6.14, which we can round to 6 milligrams. Okay? So you're just multiplying. Just going right there. Yeah, and that's kind of that's really all there is. So each of these chapters, it's very targeted. It's like one thing to do. You go in, you do that calculation, and you're kind of done. You just have to be able to read the label and pull that information out and then make sense of it. So there's a little bit less this week, right? We're only covering the 2 chapters because I'm trying to keep them grouped together in ways that make a little bit more sense. So we'll do, you'll have 5 chapters next time, but they all kind of go together. So they should sort of make sense. It's like flowing from one thing into the next, which seems to make a little bit more sense than breaking them up. So we're actually, we'll actually end a little bit earlier today. We'll get a little bit of a break because you only have the 2 chapters. Again, please, really, it's one of the, it's like up there, one of the top things that a person can do to make sure they're going to be successful in these classes is don't let the homework pile up, especially since now I'm about to go in here and extend those due dates. Do not let it pile up behind you. You're going to have problems down the road, and it keeps people from passing the class sometimes. Like people that, I can tell they have it in them to pass the class. If they had just worked on it progressively over the course of time, they would have finished all the work and passed the class. But they waited till the last minute and then couldn't get it done, and then now you get a D or an F. So please don't be in that group. I don't really want to give any of you D's or F's. So try to pay attention to that and make sure that you're keeping up. If you have old assignments that you'd like to go back and revisit, they should get opened up, so you can go back and work on those and try to get some of those points and make sense of that stuff. Okay, so that's where we're at, and then we'll have a little bit more to talk about next time, a week from now, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So anyone who wants to stick around and talk to me in Zoom, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I'm going to turn off the YouTube stream. I'll stick around and help all of you. Anyone with questions or concerns. I already talked about what I'm going to do with the homework, so you can expect that to happen in the near future here. Hopefully, latest I would get that done is tomorrow, but I'm hoping to get it done in the next few minutes, get all those homework due dates changed so that people can work on that. Otherwise, I'm available. I'm here to answer your questions and whatever you want. So, okay, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.